Hello, podcast listeners. Before we get started on this episode, I just wanted to share that this year I became a health coach and I started a business with Arbonne International. This conversation is talking with my upline, Chris Gilbert, and I can't wait to share what he has to say about why I joined this great company. And when you hear more, you'll understand how this company aligns with the You Are a Philanthropist values, and you'll understand why I love it so much. Please enjoy. Welcome to the You Are a Philanthropist podcast. This is episode 18, and today we're talking with Chris Gilbert. Chris is a husband, father of 5, former teacher, lacrosse coach, youth minister, and an Arbonne consultant, which is a health and beauty company, along with his wife.
Welcome to the You Are a Philanthropist podcast with Jen Klein, a certified fundraising executive and philanthropic entrepreneur. This show is dedicated to empowering and inspiring you to make a difference in your community and our world. Jen believes all acts of kindness matter, and this show is designed to help you take pride in your everyday actions of improving the lives of others and making a change in the world. Now, here's Jen.
Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
I'm so glad you're here. And one of the reasons why you're here is because you're a leader on my team and you lead with enthusiasm and vision, and you inspire determination of your team.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the vote of confidence. It's really an honor to be with you today.
I want to get to know you a little bit better because you inspire your team so much. I'd like to hear more about your career, both with Arbonne and formerly as a teacher and lacrosse coach and youth minister. Can you tell me about your career?
Sure. It's funny. I think life throws a lot of different opportunities at you. And for me, I have a lot of different interests. There's things that have really grabbed my attention. And I see some themes through them all. I really enjoy passing things on that I learned, whether it's something I'm reading or the opportunity to teach or coach. And Arbonne has provided that for me as well. So I've kind of grew up focusing on sports, and I loved lacrosse and soccer. I was a ski instructor for a time, and I find myself taking some of those things that I loved on the field, taking them to the classroom. So I really enjoyed teaching and having the opportunity to spend time with youth and high schoolers and so forth. And I realized about myself that I've never stopped loving learning. So I'm consuming books all the time, and everything that I take in, I just want to pass on to other people. And I think that's the most rewarding part of it, because if you just have some experience on your own, it's one thing. But when you can share that with other people, I think it's very rewarding. And so I've most recently focused on the business aspect of that and how growing yourself personally can really help you build a strong business. And so that's what Arbonne has provided for me most recently.
Great. Now, your wife was involved with Arbonne earlier than you. When did you start to get involved?
Yeah, so she's been involved for almost 15 years. And the funny part about that is when she first heard about the opportunity, she said, "Hey, I heard about this company and they have skincare and I'd like to get some." And I said, "Wait, well, what? Tell me about this." And as she told me, I said, I really liked the business model because I had some familiarity with business. And I was like, "You should do that." And she's like, "What? I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people." And I was like, "No, this could be perfect. It would be a great opportunity for you." So I was encouraging her from the beginning because I thought it sounded really solid, but I didn't see it as something that I wanted to do personally. I was on a track I was studying at Franciscan University in Steubenville, Ohio, and I was looking at jobs that I could get in the church. And I really wanted to either teach or be full-time in ministry somehow or another. And so that's the track that I was on. I did that. I did that for 7 years. There was so many aspects about that I really loved, especially trying to raise up leaders. I had a lot of high school and college students who stepped forward ready to lead, but needing to have some shaping. And while I was doing that, I was watching Elizabeth build a business by becoming a better version of herself. I saw her reading and listening to great audio and having others who were really pouring into her. And that really made an impact on me, because I knew that's not something that happens overnight. But all the while, as she's trying to grow this business, I see that means she's becoming a better version of herself. And guess who benefits from that? Me as a husband, everybody else around her. So I took note of all that. I was supporting her and cheering her on. And when I kind of came to a turning point, an inflection point in my own career, she had invited me. She said, "Why don't you join me as an Arbonne consultant?" And I stopped and I reflected on it. I thought, you know what? I know that it's been beneficial for her. I could learn the same lessons. I could have the same opportunities, and we could do this together. And we were actually on a ski trip at the time. And I remember kind of hopping off the lift. It was nighttime. I was on my own. I was said a prayer, and I was like, this is what it's going to feel like kind of going into this unknown space. Even though it was somewhat familiar, as I kind of just bombed down the hill, I thought, this is the adrenaline feeling I'm going to get from going in a new direction. So that's what I did. I joined her about 6 years ago, and it really has been exhilarating.
Great. And now your wife is very pregnant with your fifth child. So having you to be able to pass the ball to must be really helpful for your family of soon to be 5.
Yeah, yes. She's due in a few days, or a few weeks, I should say. And it's very exciting. There's a lot of different dynamics when you work with your spouse. And I'd say sometimes I describe it as almost like 3 businesses. She has things that she does on her own that she is that brings out her skills and the things that I'm not so good at. And then I have some things that I do kind of on my own that bring out my skills. And then we have the things that we get to do together. And it's just neat to kind of navigate each of those. But we also have to create boundaries. We have to know when it's time to have those conversations. And yeah, it's the same thing because we homeschool our kids. She takes the lead on that, but I'm able to step in at times and take over for her or support her. And it's really neat that we get to take that approach to our business, that we can kind of take turns and co-lead at times.
I love that you're a team for homeschooling. That's not an easy feat. And I know it is very rewarding in the long term to have that quality time with your children and to teach them values that they might not hear in the outside world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the fun of it, is that I think everybody's teaching their kids in some capacity or another, whether you call it teaching formally or not. And homeschooling just kind of brings a little bit more under that umbrella.
Great. And so I want to make sure we talk about why you chose the company of Arbonne. It's a very impressive company. I stumbled upon it and it really aligned with my values. I'd love for you to share about the values of Arbonne.
Absolutely. There's nobody in the world like Arbonne. And I experienced that on a lot of different levels. As I said, when Elizabeth first became aware about Arbonne, the first person who brought it to her name was Danielle Pearson, and she was referred from our sister-in-law. And Danielle was immediately an impressive person, very servant-minded. She clearly had just a heart of gold, and she wanted to help people. And that came across right away. So that was my first experience with the company. Then I came to learn that Danielle was one of many people in this culture who they weren't kind of going against everybody else, but that was the norm, that Arbonne was encouraging people like Danielle to grow in a personal way, to grow into a better version of themselves. And she used that language, to become a better version of yourself. And, it struck me because I was surrounded by a lot of people often who are complaining about their jobs or complaining about their bosses. And here in Arbonne, I was hearing about a company that encouraged you to be your own boss, to take hold of your future, to be the change you wanted to see in the world around you. And to know that kind of went all the way up the corporate ladder through the home office, that was encouraged from the top, that really stood out to me. And then, as I said before, I saw it firsthand with Elizabeth and a group of leaders that she was they were pouring into her, and that was impacting her. And then she was turning and pouring that same focus into other people. So that stuck out to me. I also came to realize that, so Arbonne's been around for over 40 years now. And Arbonne is now what's called a B corporation. Some of your listeners may be familiar with what that means, but it means that on three important fronts, you do really well. You make a profit, so you're a solid business. You take care of your people, and you take care of the planet. And the B corporation certification has been around for us for just a few years, but I really think Arbonne has had that focus since the beginning. Arbonne is a company that is aware of what's going on in the world, the kind of stresses that people are dealing with, the kind of impact that the planet is getting from a lot of other companies or just individuals that aren't caring too much. And to realize that Arbonne wants to take care of every environment around us, the environment of our body, the environment of the planet, that stood out to me in a number of different ways. And that also goes all the way through to the Arbonne charitable foundation, Flourish, which is just another way that lined up with the things that I care about, because today we live in a world where it's hard, right? Stresses are hitting people younger and younger and younger. And I worked in the world of youth culture for a long time. So the Flourish Foundation looks at really just helping mental health among the youth. And that is something that is so cool to see that, again, that's a focus of Arbonne. And so that's just like one of several ways that the company really struck me as just being incredible.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm studying at Northeastern University in nonprofit management is social innovation. And one of our guests earlier last season was Jessica Brand, and she has her own business, and she has incorporated the social aspect, both being mission oriented as well as giving back. And she's a multi-passionate, very impressive, multi-passionate entrepreneur. And I just love, as small businesses, and this being a network marketing company, that as a whole, every small business owner with Arbonne is giving back to, in some capacity, both to the Flourish Foundation as well as environmentally conscious products, as well as really giving holistic and health to our clients. That's one of the things that's been most rewarding to me, is the health goals I'm able to help people accomplish. I know network marketing gets a bad rap at times, and I'm curious if you have anything you'd like to share about, how you feel network marketing is really beneficial, as well as Arbonne, to our society. If you'd like to share about that.
Yeah, great question. I totally agree that I think overall the consciousness of many in the world today is, all right, what is this company doing for me, for the world at large? Like, we want to be a part of something positive that's making a difference. I can buy a shirt anywhere, but I would rather buy it with a company who's going to do good in the world, right? And so I think that, if you, like Arbonne has said, we don't want to just be the best company in the world. We want to be the best company for the world. And that really speaks to the heart of who we are. And that's the heart of network marketing opportunity. So if anybody's had a bad, you said some people have had a bad rap. Well, if you've had a bad experience, I'm sorry that that's the case. And I'm not going to tell you that your experience didn't happen. I mean, maybe you really had some bad experience. But I can only say that at the end of the day, it falls on the individual who's representing a company, because that's why we put the focus on being the best version of yourself, right? You're the CEO, you're the boss, and it's up to you to make a positive impact in the world. And you know what? People don't always do a great job. Sometimes people are selfish, or sometimes people misspeak, or sometimes people aren't having their best day. And I can tell you from my experience, I've made plenty of mistakes. I've made plenty of errors, but I love that network marketing allows me to keep pressing forward through all those failures and mistakes and times that I have been selfish. And, I will also tell you, Jen, that I realize I love the title of your podcast, because I think we all have this kind of battle within us. I know what it's like to be selfish. I know what it's like to live as a hedonist. I just want to have as much pleasure as possible and to feel good and not care about anybody else. And on the other hand, I know what it's like to serve other people and to love other people and to deny myself something to help somebody. And I can tell you that when I do things for other people, it is a lot more fulfilling and a lot more rewarding. And yet I still have this struggle. I still have this battle within myself. And the only way that I've learned to really put other people first is to practice it. I have to daily enact it. And that's what I see network marketing is allowing me to do, and Arbonne in particular, is it allows me an opportunity to offer a gift to somebody, to help them get healthy, to help them have a new business opportunity, to help them be more conscious about where they're spending their money and the impact it's having. So I need to be a better version of myself so that I can make the planet a better place by offering people the Arbonne opportunity, by offering people a way to get healthy, and by offering them a way to become a better version of themselves.
Yeah, I've seen that within my own clients who end up thanking me for getting the word out there about Arbonne, and to see them really flourish, which is the word we like to use, based on what we share with them.
Right.
is really rewarding to me. And like you did say, it is a gift. And I'm coaching a bunch of clients right now, and I really enjoy that. And it
Awesome.
is rewarding for me.
Right.
I love how you mentioned that everybody has a battle within themselves, both for good and for selfishness. It reminds me of a Native American story about how each of us has a wolf inside of us, and one is a good wolf and one is a bad wolf, and they're battling. And as a son asks his father, well, who wins the battle? And the Native American says, the one who you feed.
Yeah. Yeah, that really captures it well. And I think that is a really great story to realize, that tension within us, because we're not doing ourselves any favor by ignoring that struggle, right? To just think, oh, I'm a good person and I kind of do good in the world. That's not helping you, and that's not helping anyone else. Instead, I think you need to take an accurate look at yourself, the good and the bad. And then you can isolate, how could I do better? When I do these things, I feel good about myself and I feel good about the impact I'm having in the world. When I do those things, I don't feel so good about myself. And to really be honest and to drill down on it allows you to put more time and energy and effort into the positive things. And that is one thing that Arbonne has really taught me. Like, what's in my head floating around on a subconscious level is having an impact on me, and I might not even realize it. But I can actually make an impact on my own life and on the lives around me by taking the things that I want to focus on and speaking to those and putting more time and effort into them.
Yeah. So you mentioned that Arbonne allows you to become a better version of yourself, and you've seen it both in who you mentioned, Danielle Pearson, as well as your wife, and now you. And I've certainly experienced that as well, and is one of the reasons why I wanted you on this podcast, is because I do see you as bringing an inspiring message to your team. And you mentioned you're a voracious reader, and I'm curious, what books have you read? What are some of your favorite books? And how does reading books allow you to give back to others in an inspiring way?
Okay, well, you put me on the spot, so I better come up with some titles. So, there are books in different categories I'm going to highlight. So when it comes to, what I might call the world of personal development And at the same time, in the world of business, I'm a big fan of John Maxwell. So anything that you can get by John Maxwell is pure gold. I'm rereading Change Your World, and he's got a lot of materials out there. I mean, he's got dozens and dozens of books, but some of those books, sometimes it's easy to focus on just kind of getting through them. And it's more valuable to me to read them slowly, to underline, to digest, ask yourself the tricky questions. So I'm definitely a big fan of John Maxwell. Another category of books that I think is really important that sometimes we dismiss or we just think it's for kids is fiction. So I'm reading my kids right now, The Lord of the Rings by J.R. Tolkien. And I just think that tapping into the imagination and allowing it to shape the world around you is really important, that we all have creative juices in us and we have opportunities to create. We might just think of that as art or architecture or something like that, but we create new opportunities in new relationships with things, conversations we have with people or places that we want to go. And so I think having a place for fiction is really important. I also like to read history. I'm reading a fascinating book right now about World War I, because no one ever talks about World War I. It's always World War II. And it's amazing when you read history. I used to think of it as like black and white, didn't really have a lot of impact on us. And you just see the same themes, the same kinds of people, the same opportunities for growth and for leadership, and these kind of inflection moments where you didn't know what was going to happen and somebody rises to the occasion. And I love getting those themes in history and seeing that every day we have the opportunity to make history. We are living right now at a time that there might be a book about you in the future. And we need to see that we have a better way to frame it when we're reading books about history too. So those are some of the categories. I don't know if that's helpful.
I love that. And I've always felt like imagination is so important. I think without it, you can't really do much. I spent my childhood running around swamps and in the forest because I lived in rural Pennsylvania and there wasn't much to do. So my brother and I made up games and played with mud pies. And
Nice.
I think about how that created this imagination that I have when I started this podcast. This isn't there's no category for this. Right. There's a category for personal development and self promotion, but there's not this category for giving back. And if there is, it's very small. And so when I created this podcast, You Are a Philanthropist, it is about you. But it's also about changing our world by giving back. And I spent a career in fundraising, as you know. And so when you're a fundraiser, you're giving this person who you're speaking with the imaginative idea to consider the nonprofit that you're supporting and the impact your dollars can have on that person. And I think that is a great way for the individual who's giving to remember that there is so much more that we can be doing in the world to make it a better place. And it starts with $5.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I think, so a couple things came to mind when you were sharing that. And the one that I want to highlight is story, right? We're all part of a story. And we're enthralled by stories. If we just see a quick, video of somebody who we don't know who they are, like that doesn't really grab a hold of us. But why are we drawn into movies so much, even when we know that they're not real? Is because something in the heart is stirred and we can relate to it. And I think the stories are so important for anything that we want to get behind and support, whether it's financially or in another way. For Elizabeth, her story was she wanted to be home with her kids, and even before she had any, she didn't want to put them in daycare. And so that motivated her. And for mine, it was something similar. I knew what it was like to have some freedom to make my own schedule and travel around the country with my family. Like you, I love to be outdoors. By the way, my kids were making a mud farm the other day. So I can relate to that. But I too wanted to be able to spend time with my kids and travel when I want. And so that's my own story that I love to share with people. And so whatever it is that we're doing, we shouldn't undervalue our story. The other thing I want to say, Jen, that came to mind is that, every person that we encounter, we have an opportunity to make an impact upon. And it's not just finances. That is a great way, as you said, it can make a big impact, and it can change somebody's life, right? We've seen that in so many ways. And I think that that's what your podcast is dedicated to. But I also want to encourage people to never feel overwhelmed, like they can't make a difference, especially if you can't even give financially. And one of the ways that I try to remind myself that is I try to see everybody as coming from some kind of pain. So, we tend to just go through our day. We go to Starbucks, we go buy some food or whatever. But if we just imagine this person is having a horrible day, they're on the verge of suicide, or they've been dealing with some kind of abuse, or they lost a loved one. Like, that changes your approach to them and allows you to be compassionate to them. And, one of the things I challenge myself is to try to make somebody's day. The way that I even talk to them, how can I make this person's day? Sometimes just asking somebody's name, like everybody has a name tag on. So I might look at you, be like, oh, thanks, Jen, and that's great. I used your name. But even when somebody has a name tag, I like to say, hey, what's your name? Because I'm communicating to you that you're important enough to know your name. And then I'm like, thanks, Jen. I really appreciate that. And that alone, that little effort, I've seen people kind of light up. And so sometimes just taking a second to get out of myself, even if I don't feel great, makes me realize I can have an impact on somebody. And that's more valuable to me than anything, that I might get out of that exchange. And so I think it's really important to know that everybody's in the middle of a story, but you can impact them in a positive way if you choose to do so. Yeah.
That reminds me, I was a soccer coach this past weekend for 12 6 and 7-year-old boys, and
nice.
The first thing we have to learn at practice is yes, basic drills and understanding of soccer at this age, but also their names and how important it is to remember their names. And I love that. I'm really enjoying it. We're a team, yet we're all individuals. And we each have the opportunity to, experience the world in a different way. But how important each of our experiences are, and the impact, like you said, that, Ron Dudley in the previous season had said, just a smile, and particularly a child's smile,
right.
He said about how someone taught a child to have a beautiful, smile when they meet new people. And when they, sometimes people, like you said, are nervous or having a hard time. And that smile can really uplift people.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many little ways we can have an impact. The things we say, the way you look at somebody, smiling at them. And then I love to get people to sense in some way that their story matters, that they matter, that they can make a difference. You talked about coaching a soccer. So I coached lacrosse for a number of years. And one thing that I've learned is that people tend to undervalue their ability to contribute and their skills, and how we make excuses, I think, to protect ourselves from doing something. So your coach says, hey, I want you to go over here and do this. And a lot of times you're like, people say, I can't do that, and that same thing happens in schooling setting. The same thing happens in business. Why do we say we can't? Well, we're afraid of making a mistake, looking bad, and then having even less confidence in ourselves. But I think a coach's job is to say, you can do it. And one thing that I've learned is that nobody is born a pro. Nobody's born, this incredible leader. Nobody's born at the top. Like, you develop skills by doing them, by practicing them. And even though we know that on some level, we still need to be encouraged. We need to learn how to do something that's a little scary, that we might not succeed at the first time, and be told it's okay to mess up. It's okay to make mistakes, because guess what? The only way you're going to become that pro and get to the top is to fail your way there, and to learn over and over and over again how to get better and better and better at it. And I love that that's true in sports, but it's true in every aspect of life.
I love the sports analogy. And you probably remember the quote better than I do about how Michael Jordan said how he lost so many game-winning shots.
Right.
Yet we don't remember that because he was so skilled at what he did.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we tend to just dismiss him as, well, he's amazing, And the book I would recommend for your listeners on that is by an author named Carol Dweck, Dweck, called Mindset. And it's amazing because she addresses that in business, for students, for athletes, and even things like art. We tend to think, oh, well, that person's gifted, they can draw really well. But in all of these categories, if you change your mind, you can change the outcomes that you have, and you start telling yourself a different story. It's amazing, the examples in that book, even with like 5-year-olds doing puzzles, how you can take somebody who's not real confident and help them have a positive mindset, a growth mindset, or you can put somebody in kind of a negative mindset that makes them not want to try and even lie about how successful they've been. And unfortunately, a lot of teachers and a lot of coaches and a lot of bosses don't know this lesson. And they might be trying their best, but they're actually putting people in a negative, fixed mindset. And it's amazing how, when you realize you can put yourself in a growth mindset, it's limitless about what you can do.
I love that. I'm a big Brené Brown fan. So when she talks about the stories we tell ourselves,
right,
how important they are, because if we're telling ourselves a negative story, well, then we're going to believe it.
Right.
And like we talked about that Native American story, like what you're feeding is the one who wins. And you talked about it being a battle in our mind, and that it doesn't come easy to be a winner, does it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very good analogy for understanding the forces that are around us. And I think ownership is a key one. Another way to think of it, just what you said, the classic pitting of virtues versus vices, and I like those. We might think about the 10 commandments. We might think about laws and rules that are kind of fixed, and those are important and helpful too. But I like focusing on virtues versus vices, precisely because of what you just said, where they're like a muscle. The more prudent I act, the more it's going to help me be prudent in the future, or the more temperate I am, because it's easy for me to want to demolish this whole pizza. And I stopped being hungry like 4 slices ago, but I'm just going to keep going. Right. But if I learn how to eat temperately, and take what I need, man, that is something that's going to serve me even when I'm not having a great day, when I want to eat my feelings, and there's nobody else around to share or whatever. But if I can grow that muscle of temperance, man, I'm going to be more mindful of other people around me. I'm going to be mindful of how things are impacting my body. And to know that I'm in this game, like I'm always having an opportunity to do my best, right? You never, like one of my soccer coaches in high school said, any team can beat any team on any day. And if you believe that, it's not, you don't just win by showing up. I don't care who you are. My favorite, most people love a good upset, it's great to be the underdog.
That's so funny. Yep.
Right. In order to believe that, you have to show up ready to play, ready to win. And also to know if you're the big dog, like you could lose if you don't get it together that day. So we shouldn't walk through life thinking the outcomes are determined. There's nothing I can do. It is what it is. No, like put your best foot forward today because something crazy and exciting can happen.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about back to season 1 again. Melissa Prendergast said that you have an opportunity when you wake up in the morning to say to yourself, I am a philanthropist. And you have the opportunity that day to make a difference in the world. I just want to take a quick break for our listeners, and we'll get right back to you, Chris.
Hey y'all, I just want to remind you that I need you to subscribe, rate, and review to this podcast. If you're enjoying it and want more conversations like this and want to help people get more involved with philanthropy, please subscribe, rate, and review. I want to thank you to the people who have already rated this podcast 5 stars. Please click to rate it 5 stars. And here is some awesome reviews. I love hearing the different stories from a variety of people's personalities. We all can contribute with the strengths we have in making the world a better place for all of us to live in. Here's another one. I really enjoy this podcast. It's encouraging to see that I don't have to be a multimillionaire who created a philanthropic foundation to impact people. It's my small gifts of my time and resources that add up. I am a philanthropist. And here's another. There are opportunities all around at an early age to remind us to look out for each other. It's a lifelong journey of seeing the opportunities and acting in them. Thanks for a great reminder. Listeners, please do me a favor, subscribe, rate, and review right now so more people can hear more from us and learn more about philanthropy.
And we're back. And Chris, you've shared so much about what inspires you, particularly about the way you approach life and getting up every day and thinking about how you can be giving instead of receiving and getting, and how rewarding that is for you. I'd like to know what your source of inspiration is for motivating you in these positive ways.
Yeah, great question. So I would say I have, a few different sources. I mean, ultimately, my greatest motivation is Jesus. So I'm a Catholic Christian, and my whole life has been very much directed and focused on who Jesus is. And I think that it's not just something that I've learned in books, but I'm talking about a person and an encounter that allows me to find encouragement, find direction, and ask some of those questions like, how am I spending my days? Like, one of my themes that I really try to ask myself is, am I being a good steward of the life that's been given to me? So I have, and this is an analogy that comes out of the Bible, out of the Gospels, which is, I'm gifted, I'm given my very life itself, my body and my soul and my mind, as well as all the stuff and the skills. And what am I doing with them? Am I using those to make an impact on the world so that I'll feel good about it? And at the end of the day, at the end of my life, I can stand before God and say I did a good job with them? Or am I kind of wasting them away, or somewhere in between? So that's something that's always motivated me. Another thing is, my parents were always very hard workers. They loved me well, and they inspired me to want to, to do something meaningful in the world. I had great coaches. I had great teachers and mentors. And so when I'm playing small, when I'm not making a big impact, I feel like I should be doing more. I'm the kind of person who says yes to too many things and and gets involved in too many things. So I've learned to say no to a lot, so that the things I am saying yes to will have, I'll be able to pour myself into those. In particular, my wife is an incredible source of inspiration for me. Speaking of things you say yes to versus what you say no to, a lot of people think marriage is like a very negative thing. Oh, why would you limit yourself to one person? And I'll just say, in order to make this great yes to my wife, I'm saying no to that person and that person and that person and that person. And, if you focus on the no's, you might think you're missing out. But I'll tell you, marriage is an incredible gift and it's an incredible blessing. And I get to have this great yes, precisely because of the no's to the other people around me. And so those are some of the inspirations. I continue, as I said before, great authors, great mentors through business that are always shaping me and challenging me. And yeah, so there's a couple.
Well, Chris, I'm so glad you said yes to this podcast.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, and I'm glad that I could be a part of it.
And I just want to ask one final question. This is a difficult question, and I'm going to put you on the spot.
Uh-oh. Okay.
What is your vision for a better world?
Yeah, so that is a great question. I would say, to me, the greatest impact that is both sustainable, so it's going to be ongoing, and one that's the most meaningful is when people buy in, they believe it, and they want to make that difference. In other words, it's not forced upon them. It's not something that they're just simply required to do. I think we could come up with a system where everybody was provided for, where everybody was doing the things that maybe you and I agreed on are important and that we've shared in this podcast. But I think the best possible outcome is when people want to do that of their own free will and volition. And so that's why I think opening our mouths and inviting people into things that we care about. So you might have things, Jen, that are focused in your life that you care about that are not the same things that I care about. But the theme is that it's meaningful to you. So if there's something that's meaningful to you, you should share that. You should invite people to participate in that and have real concrete ways that they can participate. So maybe that's giving financially. Maybe that's joining you in your business. Maybe that's reading a book together. But I think if anybody who is listening today, if anybody who wants to make an impact in the world knows, all right, not only do I have to do good in the world, but I need to invite people around me to participate in some concrete, specific way. That's when I think we can see the most exciting change.
That's amazing. And when we think about the lessons you taught us today about choosing between giving and getting, our selfishness and the opportunity to give, you and I can easily agree to model the way of Jesus, which is to constantly be giving and often sacrificially. And how enjoyable that is. It's quite opposite of what society tells us and that our own mind tells us, that giving is so enjoyable. But, as we come into the Christmas season, the end of the year, we know how special it is when we give from our hearts and give meaningful gifts, and how enjoyable particularly it is to give to children what we can for Christmas time and for the year-end holidays.
Amen. I couldn't have said it better.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your love of Arbonne, your love of giving back, and I really appreciate your time.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me, Jen. I really enjoyed it.
You are the kind of person who wants to improve the lives of others, but you need to take pride in your everyday actions. You Are a Philanthropist believes that every act of goodwill deserves to be recognized as philanthropy. Each individual action you take impacts another's life. Believe that what you do makes a difference. So call yourself a philanthropist and start a ripple effect of generosity that boomerangs back to you. Go to youareaphilanthropist.com/shop. Style your outside to match your inside. Choose a t-shirt, hoodie, or bag to show how much you love giving to others. That's youareaphilanthropist.com/shop.